Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Jay in Transit's series, COVID Confessions 1 Year Later. This episode features Kwesi Chappin, CEO of Chappin Consulting. We talk about his trajectory and journey in campaigns, political campaigns that is, what 2020 looked like and what he thinks is up next. I hope you enjoy and I'll see you on the other side. Hey, Kwesi, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Awesome. How's the summer been treating you? Well, it's just summer now, huh?
I mean, like it's just getting there, but it's heating up in Maryland over here, so it's doing me all right.
All right, good. Well, thank you so much for joining me this evening to chat with me about your life as a campaign strategist.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get started, I'd love for you to introduce yourself to my podcast audience here at Jay in Transit.
What's going on, folks? This is Kwesi Chappin. I am a organizer, aka political operative. But yeah, Kwesi Chappin of Chappin Consulting, holding it down with Juana today.
Awesome. I love it. I loved how you just dropped the terms of art so smoothly. Tell us about what a day in the life of a political operative looks like and how long you've been doing it for.
Damn, that's a good question. So I've been doing this since 2007, taking it way back to Obama campaign when people were still calling him Osama. So I was on the primary. So since then, I've been doing this type of work, whether you want to do community organizing, political operatives, bringing around campaigns. But a day in the life means typically I have a lot of conversations with a lot of different folks on the ground or in communities that are being directly impacted by someone being screwed over, right? And most likely,
way to put it.
For me, for the past 5 years, I've mostly been working in Black communities in America. So what that means is I'm talking to a lot of folks who are on the ground, connecting them and trying to give them either resources or find a way to help them in their fight. And that's been particular around local elections.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like district attorney elections or AKA prosecutors has been my steez that have been specializing for the past 5 years.
Okay.
So yeah, criminal justice reform, all that in there.
You've been busy.
A little bit.
What's been the biggest difference between starting out as a political operative in a national campaign and then switching focuses to local?
Whoa, that's a good question. So when I started off national, and again on the Obama campaign, like it is like we did a lot of good work, in particular in South Carolina around community organizing, but it hit different when you're no longer got that big name, right, coming in, and you're just, Kwesi of like SEIU in Arkansas doing change.works healthcare reform or working on a district attorney election with Color Change PAC, which was at the time when we first started doing local elections at Color Change PAC. Wasn't that many folks who knew about us, so it really is not a humbling experience, but like you come in one listening a whole lot more than you would if you were with a big national campaign where you just kind of get to do stuff because you had the money to make that thing happen.
Right.
So you gotta listen a lot more to the folks on the ground who know that community way better than you do. And then the next big thing is campaigns look way different when you're doing local stuff. So for instance, yard signs matter, right? If you told me in 2008 about yard signs mattering to me in elections, like, if you get these damn yard signs away from my office.
I hate yard signs.
But in local elections, it matters because name recognition matters because it's, quite frankly, ain't nobody know who's running for office locally, right? Mm-hmm. Regular folks don't turn out to these down ballot races. And so that means there's a lot of attention, a lot of like, what does that office do? What? DA, huh? Right? Like, and once you do know, may not even know it's an elected position, right? And that, and so it's a lot of education that goes in. Like, you're not educating people. Not too many folks. At least my encounters around what the president does, right? But
Right.
what a DA does, you are going to have to put some information on behind that.
Right. And for those who are not into politics like that, DA is district attorney.
Yes, my bad. I fall into the political jargon sometimes. My bad, folks.
Oh, it's all good. So money wise, what did that look like? Like, did you have to scramble for resources in local elections versus the national campaign, or were they equally yoked?
Oh, this is a good question. So when now the big difference is working in Black communities. I work in Black communities in both the presidential and also local elections. In
Right.
the presidential, that bag is going to come, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it may come, that money bag will come like maybe a month or 6 weeks, if you're lucky, before the election day. And the biggest difference of local is that you can be screaming for the money bag, like, because it doesn't take as much money to swing a district attorney election as compared to especially compared to a presidential. And then you narrow it down to a primary. So it's actually even harder to raise money on local elections because one, you have to explain the impact, and then funders, unfortunately, don't really want to dig in on that. And in places where we would target, particularly in Black and brown communities, is primaries, right?
Right.
Primary is the name of the game, whether it's a nonpartisan primary or a Democratic primary. A lot of that weighs in on how one is the battleground state and whether or not you making a case with, hey, there are Black folks who want to hold their police accountable. They want us to do this through getting a progressive district attorney elected, right? And so making that case is hella hard.
Yeah.
So is very, very much limited money available on local elections.
Right. And you, right when we started our conversation, you said that there is a difference between name recognition and how it made it slightly easier in national campaigns because everybody knew what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to us a little bit about 2016 and the 4 years between, 2016 and 2020.
Yeah. So for me, my 2016 looked a lot different than a lot of folks who do this type of work. 2016, I actually got some wins. I didn't get that big L.
That was
Sorry,
a big
Hillary.
one, though.
Sorry, Hillary. You know what I mean? But no, for me, what my 2016 looked like being involved in a primary very early on in Chicago, getting Kim Foxx elected, and then switching over to looking at Orlando, Houston, Texas, and I think it was Columbus, Ohio, was some of the areas that we were focusing on. And then and it became much easier to make the case around why, this local elected official that can hold police accountable to Black folks way easier than trying to convince them for Hillary. And it didn't go that way. Went my way for the DAs I was supporting there, got my wins, but did not go my way nationally when good old Trumpito won in 2016. And so right after that, folks were in their feelings, particularly a lot of political operatives were in their feelings about pointing fingers about how we lost the presidential election. And there was a lot of blame game going around.
Right.
But quite frankly, it was just like, to me, my opinion, some poor decision making at the top and people not listening to the ground. My perspective from what I saw. But what the benefits of that happened is that we got a common enemy. This is where the big air quotes, the resistance came through, right? Like, they think they in Star Wars or something like that, but the resistance rose, where coalitions that normally wouldn't work together was like, well, we got something in common. We don't like Trump. And so we gotta do what we can for these next 4 years to make sure he doesn't get reelected, and that meant fighting at the local levels, fighting at the statewide levels, and the congressional levels, and coordinated efforts. I haven't actually been seen or experienced in that time frame from 2016 to 2020. It was actually quite remarkable, like how many coalition meetings we have, like where it was a very clear common goal. That a very clear enemy, right, quote unquote enemy that people can rally against and mobilizes their membership and volunteers and their constituents, right, who care about, who want to do the donations, all that stuff to fight back against Trump. So that's one of the benefits that I saw from the biggest change from 2016 to 2020 of like how it coalesced, and particularly the folks on the left, right, Democrats, moderates, they was just like, we riding towards this, right? We gotta make sure Trump out of office. And so that allowed, I think, definitely the gains we saw in 2020 election, although it wasn't that many, but 2018 was a slow, steady drumbeat. When AOC got elected, right, of folks given that, that hopey feeling of like, hey, things may change, right?
Right. Right. And it's so interesting because you're absolutely right. We all always have, or what I would think is a common goal, but we're in our own cliques. And even though it's criminal justice reform for all, there's still someone else fighting for something else within that space. So
all day.
Yeah. So you are now, getting ready, right? Because campaigns actually did not start in 2020. People started putting all their stuff on the ground in 2019-ish. But you started ramping up in 2020, and then March came.
Woo. Listen, I would say in 2019, I actually was gathering the troops together, right? Yeah. A lot of big internal meetings, getting ready for 2020. Like a lot of coordination meetings had coming up with all of the big plans of what we're going to do in a presidential election year of 2020. Oh, to go back to 2019, look at those plans. But for me in particular, right off the gate, I actually had a couple early elections, primary elections. So an election on March 3rd, a couple elections on March 3rd, and then I think I had one even earlier than that, but like Los Angeles district attorney election, then we had Houston district, Harris County district attorney election, some big elections in the district. So we were already gearing up, running like a full offline program of like being community, having a bunch of dope events. And then, March came around, that Rona came through and blew up all the plans. In particular, working at a Black organization, that Rona hit us even harder,
right,
in a couple of different ways. One, it hit us on the staff level. Staff was getting sick, their family was getting sick. Folks were like legit scared because, quite frankly, that Rona was coming for Black folks like no other.
Absolutely.
Hell, I lost a cousin to Rona last year.
My condolences.
It was not a game to be played with. So you had staff going through it, and then if our staff are going through, which we had a majority Black staff, you better believe our members are going through it too. So our volunteers were going through it, and then folks, America didn't stop being racist just because we had a whole ass pandemic. Unfortunately. And so things were happening constantly to Black folks. And so it became actually, we kind of had to put our whole 2020 plans on hold to address our community, to make sure our community was good and safe. And so that looked like in New Orleans during the pandemic, it wasn't about the election. We were making sure that our people were being fed. So we had a drive-through dinner
Mm,
at a black grocery market to make sure that like folks were good in that area. We found ways to celebrate George Floyd in Houston, where his funeral was happening. We had down the street from his funeral like an event where we were feeding folks. It's almost like a big ass public repast, right?
right.
And this is all member led, right? So we're used to having like staff on the ground flying in, myself flying into like big events like that. And this is one of those like, nah, you gotta let go and let others do it. So we had to adjust to this pandemic, this whole new world of like, all right, what you thought would be the more traditional way was you had to get a lot of trust and depend a lot on our members and volunteers to step up in new ways.
Right.
Yeah, because just because that election was coming no matter what, but we decided that no, it was an investment in our people to meet our people where they're at,
Yeah.
right? Because it's a whole ass pandemic, and that pandemic was hitting Black folks. Whether if you were lucky enough to stay healthy during the pandemic, the jobs is going away, and it was going to hit us pretty hard. So people losing jobs and all that good stuff. So finding ways to bring some joy and like and just be real in that moment. Like when I remember when the volunteer leaders saying they had to step back because they need to pick up some shifts at Amazon. Well, who am I to tell them no? You get me? Like, so it's like meeting folks where they're at and being respectful. Remembering, especially during an election year, and I really wanted to make sure this in 2020 and this whole pandemic that we're humans first, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so many times, like in particular political campaigns and organizations, like they just see their staff and members and volunteers as just like, numbers on the sheets, you know what I mean? And that's not, in particular at a Black-led organization, I wasn't going to rock for that. So I want to do things differently. So we had to switch our whole plans up for 2020 for sure.
And that was a great point made that I was thinking of you expounding on. So thank you. That yeah, we as constituencies is what we're called, right? So we're not even given names; we're just given titles and labels. We are treated as a means to an end, and so I guess I'm curious to see before we turn a little bit to you about. Do you think that human touch is going to stick around now that the world is opening up and campaigns are still happening?
It's a good question. I mean, it really depends on who's running those shops, right? And like where they hard at. Because if the pandemic didn't make you want to switch things up or see folks as human beings, then I don't know what will, right? Particularly like if understanding like these issues that we're fighting for, like the election is never good. The elections are a tactic, right?
Right.
And so like so you're folks are like pushing and prodding just to get through that one tactic, but it's such a long road. And like criminal justice reform, economic justice, all these like issues that ain't gonna go away by a snap of the finger, right? And so really pacing ourselves in this work is so important. So I hope that it stays, that human aspect stays, of like giving I know a lot of organizations come up with summer Fridays off. Like, please,
right.
you know what I mean? Like, because this work ain't going nowhere. And so it's up to us to decide, like, hey, what's the healthiest way to get our people there wholly, right? And I think that matters so much, personally.
Awesome. Did you see any changes within your own organization that you think they will adopt in terms of making this more of a human touch, or do you think it was a one in a lifetime opportunity?
Now, that's a good question. I'm no longer with that organization, so I
Right.
don't know what they have stuck with, but they're generally good folks, and so everything is going to stay remote. From my understanding, like making it work remote, not forcing folks to go to office when if it's a small ass office, you know what I mean? And
Right.
this pandemic, now everybody vaxxed up now. Hopefully people are vaxxed up, but not everyone does that.
Yep.
But I think there's definitely some human policies that got got in place in 2020 that you can't take that away now. People got
Mhm.
used to it.
Yes.
You
It's
stuck
gonna
with
be real hard. What were some of the personal effects of COVID in on you as you were also trying to run a large piece of this organization in such extraordinary times?
Wow. For me, what really happened, what made 2020 hard for me was a lot of isolation. Like,
Mm,
my work in particular I do, and as a political organizer, I had to do a lot of meetings with external partners, aka folks outside of my organization, right? So
mhm.
I'm talking to somebody in Miami about this upcoming election. I'm talking to somebody in California, in Los Angeles, about what's going down in LA. And so I and there's a lot of stuff that happens in between that call, but you're stuck remote, right? And you're not there. You're missing out on a lot. And so
Mhm.
I felt a lot of isolation. And if I'm getting yelled at, right, I'd rather go on a beach somewhere. You know what I mean? That
Yes.
wasn't an option. You know what I mean? To like decompress that way. No, you were stuck in that house after getting yelled at.
Yes.
And so that isolation became mad real, especially as someone that did national politics in a lot of local areas.
Hmm.
And so it was hard. It was harder for me to connect with folks, and that really ran a toll on me. So that I missed that personal connection. Like I miss dapping people up, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
miss laughing with folks in person, right? There's some things, although you can plan out the best Zoom parties or Zoom meetings and just those FaceTimes, but it's nothing like that good old dap up. Like, let you, hey, I'm here. It's like a human connection,
Agreed.
and a lot of my work really depended on that, or at least I felt that I needed that to be to bring the joy out. Right.
Hmm.
Without that, woo, it's a rough job.
It is. I do recall I gave a what are the alternative careers or other careers in the political organizing space. So I went through a whole campaigns 101. And I said for me that because I did a little bit in 2020, I was not the superstar that you were.
Mhm.
But I think what I said was for me it was the connection part that was the biggest con to the pandemic in terms of running, or working in campaigns. And as a joke, I was like, well, I would have rather have, gained the 15 pounds next to you than like sitting on the other
Mm. You-
sitting on the other side of this computer.
and like what it is, like you troubleshoot much better in person,
Yes.
right? And so like when shit hits the fan, a call, I may not pick up the call phone, right? Because I'm
Right.
in the mix, right? But when you're in person, that troubleshooting gets much better, and like the real to talk, the real work sometimes happen, and especially like the ideas is when it's after that phone bank, after the last meeting, you get to go kick it with your crew,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And like and you're essentially doing a debrief, right?
Right.
You're debriefing your day, like your challenges, your highlights, and people need that, right? That's that energy that fills that political organizer soul. And a lot of that wasn't happening last year. Like at least on a consistent basis, right? Like you may have a little Zoom, but like I have to be on the Zoom all damn day. The last thing I want to do is hop on the Zoom just to kick it.
Right. Yeah, definitely dropped the ball on those Zoom happy hours after 12-hour Zooms. So
Right.
yeah. Are there any good or bad habits that you picked up during this time?
I mean, I worked out a lot more.
Yeah.
I picked
Shout
up.
out to the trainers.
I got shout out to the trainer. You know what I mean. If it wasn't for my personal trainer, shout out to Fitness Theory. Give the plug. That helped a lot with my mental health, quite frankly, and just like getting also better physically, right?
Hmm.
Um, last year was probably my healthiest campaign.
And this is after years.
Years.
2007.
Yeah.
Wow. So, two things. One, what do you think the future of campaigns is now? Because campaigns don't end, right? We're in the middle of local ones now.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you think the impact of 2020 is impacting these and the midterms, in what, 15 months?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things that I've witnessed is that a lot of organizations got exposed for having weak digital strategy, right?
Mm.
Like if your organization was struggling to figure out Zoom, woo, right? Trouble for you last year, right? If you didn't know what digital ads was about, or like had an effective way of communicating with your AKA constituency, your audience, right, through digital means, it was going to be a problem, right? And that pandemic exposed a lot of folks who were like, nah, I just do a paid canvas and call it a day. Like I pay some folks to go knock on these doors, right?
Right.
And that's my bread and butter. Well, that got removed, right? That pandemic removed it for some. But others were thugging it out and found ways to like, nah, if my community is in these streets, I'm gonna be in these streets.
Right.
And so like some of them match that energy, and I 100% respect that, but I think one of the biggest things that arose from that is that digital became a lot more people would spend a lot more money on digital than they ever did before. That's digital ads on Facebook, Twitter, even though Facebook was hating with their fake block at the end of the year, end of the election year, to make sure that no one was biased or whatever. That's not nonsense. But either way, one of the things that came again, digital ads became up and live. Communication got their shine. Oh, sorry. If you live in a battleground state, aka Georgia, Ohio, Florida, North Carolina, Texas, and you got blasted by text messages, that became so hot. I mean, it was hot in 2016, right? But like it picked up over the years. But 2020, folks went overboard, and so
Right. You're right.
I'm actually hoping that cold text messaging, kind of we need to find a different way of how to communicate with voters, and because that ain't it, because people are just going to be tuning that out. And the amount of people, if you did volunteer for a text message campaign and you texted Georgia during that runoff,
right,
you and 20 other organizations doing the exact same thing.
Right. Definitely, there was a lot of text message inundation.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. What were some of your lessons learned during this time period?
I got learned again that you gotta trust your people, and that's like trusting your staff and trusting your members and your volunteers a whole lot more. I learned that lesson all the way back on the Obama campaign, but like it got reintroduced even over again when you were forced to do it. So letting go of a lot of like what you would normally hold and put it in other people's hands. So delegating and training people up so that way you feel confident that they won't, drop the ball. Right? And if they did drop the ball, guess what? That's a learning moment, right?
Right.
And finding ways, because this work is nonstop, right? Which if you mess up one day, what did you learn from that? And then you take it and go for the next level. So I learned a lot about that, in particular, like at the time the organization was very worried about doing offline events during the pandemic. But our members wanted that, right? Our members were in these streets, especially the members in the South, right?
Right.
Atlanta was out here.
There was no COVID in Atlanta.
Houston was out here. Florida was out here. You know what I mean? Like, mask, huh?
Right. I mean, there
Like,
was COVID, sorry, but the folks were like, and what?
yeah, well, like, that COVID is top racism. You get me? So, like, if people wanted to find ways, so matching that energy of like where your members are at and where your people are at is what I learned, even despite the uncomfortable. Like, all right, well, how do you get comfortable? All right, well, that means you gotta get that hand sanitizer back, right? Got to be masked up, right? Got to put some protocols in place and adjust your plans to meet your people where they at.
That's valuable, and I appreciate you for sharing that. So you have mentioned a few times that you are in a transition. Tell us about that. What's next?
This is a good question. So right now, I am now the CEO of Chappin Consulting. So I started my own political consulting firm where I'm working with social justice organizations and other nonprofits, doing coaching. It's doing strategy work to, take down the man. But in many different ways. So I'm actually in the transition period of like looking at different projects until where I really want to focus in on. Who knows? Maybe in a year I might be back on the job. Who knows?
Who knows?
But right now I'm doing my own thing and exploring passion projects like, reparations.
Yes. You don't have to whisper that. We all
reparations, finding out different ways to do that, working with ideally with athletes, particularly from the major sports leagues, black athletes, and getting them more engaged in social justice work. Because there are different ways to do this work, and I just want to find creative ways to engage regular Black folks, right? People who aren't your everyday activists, people who just who be in the barbershop chilling and talk about politics, but don't really know a way to plug in, right? How do we engage them? I think there's some cool, unique ways that I want to try out in this consulting world and projects I want to try out to give opportunities for those folks to get involved on this fun called political organizing.
That's awesome. Well, I tip my hat to you. I think, I think you are the man to do all of that. And so
Thank you.
I'm glad you are taking that leap of faith and pushing forward. And I know that whatever it is that you end up doing, it's going to be great, even if it is going back to the job.
Hey, listen, them bills got to pay now.
That health insurance is expensive.
Right.
Awesome. Well, why don't you tell the podcast audience where to find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Kwesi, Kwesi. That's the best way to get a hold of me. The website is still in the works, so you'll see Chappin Consulting up there in a minute. So, but right now, if you want to get a hold of me, Instagram is the best way.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience, your vulnerability with us during a difficult time and through your transition. And we look forward to hearing more about Kwesi.
I appreciate that. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining me and tuning in to how campaigns are run behind the scenes, but most importantly, how my guest Kwesi ensures that all of our Black communities know what's at stake in their backyards. If you would like to follow him, please go to Instagram and find him at Kwesi, Kwesic. And also follow me at J in Transit. Be sure to also rate this podcast on your streaming platform. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.